Hey, I'm Ari. I've been sober about 1.5 years.
Hi, I'm David. I'm a musician. I've been sober for just over 30 years now. I don't think there are differences in addiction. I think there are differences in conventions. I mean, when I got sober in '87, it was very unusual to see somebody your age in a meeting.
Right.
I mean, they were all, completely old farts, and they were deeply offended if you mentioned drugs.
Right.
But and I guess I was like early 30s, and I was considered, very young.
Right.
To be cashing in your chips and getting sober.
Absolutely. Now we see like people 15, 16, 17 already having like a year sober.
Yeah, because it's so much more in the public consciousness. I think I would have gotten here earlier if I'd known more about recovery, because there was I can think of it like some time in my 20s when everything was kind of a big mess, and I think it would have got my attention had I have known that there was a solution.
Right, and it was somewhat frowned upon a little bit to a degree, right? Because now, like, I hear from back in the day that it was like, oh, I was an alcoholic and I admitted it, and they're like, oh, he's an alcoholic, and now it's like, I'm an alcoholic and I'm sober, and it's like, good job, like, that's amazing, good for you, right?
Yeah, I was deeply offended when a friend of mine, got so. I mean, not that it happened very often, but I remember one guy that I used to drink and use with, another musician, and he went into rehab, which was I'd never even heard of, and he came out and he didn't want to drink for a while. We socially ostracized him until he came to his senses and started drinking.
Right. Was it like a little bit of jealousy, or was it more just like, oh, well, we have nothing to do with you anymore? It's like we drink and you don't, so. I
don't think we would have thought of it like that back then, but yeah, I think when somebody else around you gets sober, it makes you look at your own stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not necessarily very comfortable.
Right. Yeah.
So
no, I used to really look down on it, but I used to get, I don't know if the word's offended, but I think to like more or less to a degree I would be offended. Like someone would come to me and they're like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm like, why? What's wrong with that? And they're like, well, look at you, and they're trying to point out all my flaws, which I'm like aware of on a subconscious level, but I don't want to get to that conscious level.
Well, I think for me, it was a betrayal of the rock and roll lifestyle, live fast, die young, all that stuff, and so, I was offended by it because I thought that, I thought that it couldn't be cool. It had to be sanctimonious claptrap. It had to be like little baby Jesus stuff.
Right.
And I knew that was going to piss me off, because I was this rock and roll guy. I got sober up in Northern California, which is, where in those days it was even different from how it is now. But when I came down to Los Angeles, this recovery in West Hollywood and the West Side, is, just a different beast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's the same program, but it's kind of the mecca of recovery in a way.
No, 100%. I mean, I've tried getting sober in other states and other cities, and it just never. It never was the same. The community is just so large.
Typically, if you're an addict of the kind that I am, you got to get your butt kicked pretty comprehensively before it ever gets your attention.
Right.
And then once you have had once you've been given the gift of desperation,
that sense of hitting that bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you'll get sober, in a bomb shelter on the moon. When you're new, you need to find that there's cool on the other side of sober. And
fun.
you know, and I think when I first came in, and I think for a lot of people when they first come in, you know, they think, you know, I'm going to sit here in God's waiting room, waiting for my number to come up,
mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm never going to have fun again, and I'm never going to have another nice thing,
mm-hmm.
you know, which is kind of the opposite of what my experience has been, you know, is like I've had a lot of fun in recovery, you know,
yeah,
and I was present for it in a way that I wouldn't have been. You know, I mean, a lot of the guys I played with in the 70s are all dead now.
Yeah.
You know?
My using was primarily based around not wanting to experience myself, right? So whatever I could do to kind of get out of myself. And I think the most beneficial thing that I found now was, like you were saying, having fun and continuing to kind of do the same things, but in a safer way.
We don't know when we're out there ripping and running. We don't know what we're actually running from.
Right.
We have to slow down enough
We
and
have
get
to kind of
sober
cut
enough
all that out and figure out.
To figure it out, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we see the pieces moving around the board. We see the sad, stupid,
yeah.
dumb things we do when we're loaded, but we don't see the magnets
right.
under the table that are moving.
We don't see what's making us do those.
You know?
Yeah.
And the whole point of addiction is to uncover, discover, and discard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these liabilities in us, emotional liabilities, you know. It took me a long time, even sober, you know, to work out what I was running from.
Me always thinking that something was someone else's fault. So, you know, I was going through a while where I thought everything was working out and something would go wrong. I lost my fiance because I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't stop taking pills. And
mm-hmm.
she couldn't be around that anymore, because it was always a different Ari. It was never the same person. So I'm
mm-hmm.
losing my family. You know, they want nothing to do with me. I'm losing my friends. They want nothing to do with me. My fiance wants nothing to do with me. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting on my couch watching TV, and I'm alone. Well, how did I get here? How did I get so alone? So it took me a while of being sober to realize that these problems were me. You know, mm-hmm. alcohol and drugs was my solution to this problem. They weren't my problem. They were my solution. I was the problem. Mm-hmm. So without doing this continuous work on myself, I'm just going to be that person. Sober or not sober.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did my fair share of geographic solutions to emotional problems,
mm-hmm.
which is how I ended up in America, incidentally. But, yeah, because it's always somebody else's fault, you know. But, I mean, plenty of bad things happened to me when I was drinking and using. When I finally got it, it was just that all the dials were on zero, you know, and I felt like washed up and finished. We're constantly blaming other people, in part because I think we find it therapeutic,
mm-hmm.
but, you know, mostly it's to, you know, not have to deal with, you know, the reality of the situation, which is becoming increasingly untenable. The little voices saying, you know, this maybe isn't a good idea.
Yeah, you know, those voices were saying something to me like this isn't a good idea, but they also really love to say to me, you know, this is God's fault, this is not your fault.
Uh-huh.
And I think something that's important that we tend to do in sobriety is we find our part in what happened.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we have to be careful when talking about God to say that, you know, like, you know, we're not Bible salesmen, thank God.
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
if they'd told me that I had to dress a certain way when I got sober, I wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. If they told me I had to believe in a certain thing, mm-hmm. you know, when I got sober, I wouldn't be here.
Right. Well, don't get it twisted. This is my personal experience because I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish home. Oh. So I was always told that, you know, you pray to God, you ask for the things that you want. But in my life, all these negative things that I was doing to myself,
right.
instead of using God as a positive thing, I was just blaming him for everything.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm in a foreign country and I end up getting raped because I'm looking for drugs, I'm looking for alcohol, mm-hmm. in a place where I know nobody. And then I blame God when really I have the biggest part in that. You know, I wake up being released from a prison cell and I blame God. Like, how could God have put me in here? But I was the one stealing from Walmart, stealing BB guns because I thought I needed to protect myself from people that weren't there.
I never thought, oh, I want to get sober. I just thought, oh, I want to control and enjoy my drinking and using.
Right, moderate.
Yeah, so, you know, if I woke up, I thought, oh God, what did I do last? Oh no. And I said, what? No. You know, then I say, okay, that's it. I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm just going to use drugs like a sensible person.
I always love the term that this is the only disease that'll tell you that you don't have it. I always loved that. I mean, for me, it was really interesting. It was, you know, I hear most people talking about starting with drinking and then gradually building to other drugs, which with me, it was actually the exact opposite. I think my rock bottom was when it really got worse, the worst of the worst, and made me want to stop and try and get sober for the first time. I was in my closet trying to shoot up, and I'm just bleeding all over the place. I have no veins left. Just blood's dripping down my arms onto the carpet, and I'm on the phone with my sponsor at the time. I say sponsor because I only called him when, you know, I was doing terrible. I never called him for anything good. And I'm just calling him, I'm crying. I can't hit a vein, I don't know what to do. He's like, maybe you should actually get sober this time and like really try it out. So, you know, I was so done. I was so worn out, all my money was gone, everything was gone. And I gave it that shot, and I flew out to Florida to try and go to rehab. And it's so sad to say, I just wasn't ready yet. And I hear it so often, it's like, I don't think I'm ready yet. And I feel for those people when they say it. Because if you're not ready yet, there's nothing that anyone can do for you. You have to be ready.
That's the greatest distress, you know, is getting to that point where, you know, you say, fuck it, and surrender. You know, once you're there, you know, most of those troubles just fall away.